Welcome to the Go Reflect Yourself podcast, bringing you real, practical, brain-based strategies to cultivate a life and business full of freedom and fulfillment, starting from the inside out. Working hard and staying busy will only get you so far. To truly become happy, content, and who we are meant to be, we have to move beyond physical capacities and begin to reflect from within. We have to change our thoughts and our mindset into our most powerful assets, transforming you to take inspired action so you can become a better version of yourself and have the life of your dreams.
You are stronger than you believe. You have greater powers than you know.
Welcome to the Go Reflect Yourself podcast. My name is Heather J. Crider, and here we provide 60-second brain-based reflection strategies for your success in all key areas of your life. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Pete Hinojosa, who focuses on developing, did I say that right?
Yeah, that was great.
Good.
That was great.
That's always the worst part, is being able to accurately pronounce a name, and I'm never good at that.
Well, I'll tell you a funny one in just 1 second. So.
Okay, well, let me sort of introduce you. Pete focuses on developing human capital and growth potential. Originally a science teacher, Pete realized that if you focus on the individual and help them bring out their best, great things can happen. As the director of human capital development at Insperity and the creator of Quest Leadership Dynamics, Pete has spent his entire career developing people. He integrates the DISC model into his leadership training and also has a mission to equip servant leaders of each generation to be a positive influence in the community, and many, many more. There's so many accolades that Pete has. We would talk for about 10 straight minutes if I continued going through those. So I think I'll just bring in Pete now. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate it. Yeah, one of the things that I always think is funny is that, so my name, when I put it up there, it says A.G. Pete, in quotes, Hinojosa. And it stands for Agapito Hilardo Hinojosa. But I don't go by that. I can't even say it really well myself, but that's pretty close. So I'm a junior out of, my dad was a senior, Agapito Hilardo Hinojosa Senior. But when I grew up, it was always, in school, so they would say something like, and it was the same people in my class. So Heinrich, Heinbach, and then all of a sudden you get Hill, and then it would be dead stop, and they wouldn't have the teachers would have no clue how to say my name. And then I would always listen for where the H's were, and I would say, that's probably me. And they would say, oh my God, how do you say your name? And I would say Pete, and they would go, oh, thank God. And then they write Pete down, and then they would never ask me really how to say it. So eventually, as I taught high school, my students learned how to say my name. So, because I wouldn't let them call me Mr. or Mr. H or something like that, or Coach. I wanted them to say my name accurately because, you're representing your family.
It's respect.
Yeah. And so I was coaching tennis at the time, and a handful of on the girls team, they came up to me and said, Mr. Hinojosa, we know how to say your name now. This is how we're going to say your name from now on. I said, okay. They said, okay, it's a riddle. I said, all right, what's the riddle? Where do you get water from? And I said, I don't know. She goes, Hinojosa. And so they all got a great laugh out of that. So for years after that, when I would teach, I would put my name up on the board and I would say, how do you say my name? Where do you get water from? Hinojosa, right?
Oh my gosh.
It's not quite in a hose, but it's Hinojosa. And so the H is silent, the J is like an H.
Oh my gosh.
I've shared that forever. But last piece of this, which is just ridiculous, is when you have a hard name like that and people don't know you, or you get introduced on the stage, please help me welcome Mr. Pete Hinojosa. All right. And then I have to walk up and go, I'm pretty sure that's me. So yeah, let's see if I can make a difference. Dale Carnegie would say the most important thing in the whole world and the sweetest sound in the whole world is your name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have had my name destroyed a lot. So you did a great job.
The sweet
Absolutely awesome.
sound of your name has not been so sweet in many occasions.
Yeah. Please help me welcome Mr. Pete. Hush. I've had it every way possible. Hinojosa, Mr. Hinojosa, say, hey, all right. So whatever, it's fine.
Well, and the key is if you say it really quickly, maybe you won't hear me butcher it. That's usually my go-to. If I really feel uncomfortable, if I try to pull in my old accent and just try to say it quickly, maybe you won't catch that I butcher it.
Well,
but I like that. That's creativity for your students to come up with a way to be able to say it in Hinojosa.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Good for you. See, that's proof right there that you are a great teacher.
Well, I wish I would have thought of it. My students thought of it for me. So I just share the stories.
That's good. That's good. Well, I am so honored that you're here. And we were just talking just before we got on live about so many different things. And to be honest, we really could talk for 5 or 6 hours about many directions, but I just wanted to jump into something that you said about tools. Okay. And I'm interested if you would just briefly explain, because your background is very, very vast, and you focus, and I will say this in a very quick way, and obviously you can elaborate, but you have focused, you started it as a teacher, and then you have grown and continue to put training into youth, but also into leaders, and really grown into that leadership development. But it's all through tools and how for people to be able to tap into the tools that they have. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. One of the illustrations we were talking about was I love to paint, and I think it's interesting that you'll hear it all the time, and this is what's called the self-image tool. Anytime I teach self-image, one of the first things someone says is, well, I can't paint, or I'm not an artist, or I can only do stick figures. I've heard that so many times, it's not even funny. And we have to remember that everybody likes different types of styles of painting as well, and there's different styles of people. But back to the idea of tools, is that when you start painting, it looks really difficult, and it's not simple. I mean, there's a lot of things to learn about to paint something or to interact effectively with a person. But once you know your tools well, then you have the ability to do things that surprise people, that influence people positively. So one of the things I showed you was that, and I have them right next to me because I'm actually in my painting studio. There's some different brushes. So this is it's like a filbert. It has a round edge, and it does different things. And if you ever watch Bob Ross, do you know who Bob Ross was?
Oh, yes, very much.
Bob Ross would use something like this, like a filbert, and he would double load it. And so you'd put like a light color on one side and a dark color on the other side. And then in one stroke, now watch, I just changed it. So you could just smack it onto a canvas like that. But if you keep it on its side like that and then pull it across, you'll take the light side and the dark side, and in one hit, you'll actually create a light and a dark, which creates really great rocks. Well, if you don't know how to use that tool, then what you'll do is you'll take one paintbrush, paint rock, dark side of the rock, then you'll take another one, put on the light side of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. But double loading does it more quickly, and it creates a really fantastic effect. Well, this is it's called a rigger brush. R-I-G-G-E-R. And so it creates the rigging of sails. That's where the name came from. And so using this brush right, and I was sharing with you that if you hold it down here more like a pencil, then you get more control. But if you hold it way up here and you just flick it back and forth, then that creates like grass and things like that, the little smart, little quick, out of control strokes. But if you tried to do that down here, you're going to be creating one stroke at a time. Well, when you talk about people, it's the same thing. When you have different tools, and I love the tools of human behavior. So you have the DISC tool. That's a tool that helps you understand the unique individuals of human beings. So Are they more dominant or influencing or steady or compliant? Are they a blend of those? And what does that look like? Or maybe you use Ken Blanchard's situational leadership tool. Well, with Ken Blanchard's situational leadership tool, how do I know to use directing or coaching or support or delegation? You can think of Covey, in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Hiram Smith was a gentleman that worked with Covey. And when Hiram Smith created a model, he called it this belief window. And so how do you meet these needs and how are your beliefs impacted by that? EQ is a different tool set. So how do I understand my emotional intelligence? And ultimately, how is it that I'm reacting with anger or fear instead of responding with love or influence? So I use all of those tools all of the time when I'm trying to work with another person. And they seem like they're really complicated, but once you learn them, it's like a language. It's the ability to take that paintbrush and paint a picture with 2 people in a completely different way than if you didn't know how to use them at all. And now you create something beautiful instead of, oh, that looks like a stick figure. And not that a stick figure is even bad, but it's a different way to utilize all these tools that I've learned over my lifetime and then think about how to connect with people.
That's beautiful. And at the end of the day, depending upon our circumstances, what we've learned, what we need, our different personality. Yep. Some people may be able to access the tools we already have within us. And then people like you help develop maybe learning skills and pull out the tools and skill sets that we already have.
Well, that's a really nice way of saying it. I didn't really think about it that way, but I think, as you said, if you'll let me share this one little thought, I think sometimes we get so hard on ourselves of what we're going to do with our lives and how do we add meaning and what's our purpose and all those type of things. When by learning something like what I've learned and then sharing it with another person, that's one of the greatest ways to actually have meaning, to have a purpose, is to serve another person. And so that you just really made me think about it. Like, yes, I learned those things almost for the wrong. Like if I thought about it in the beginning, I learned the disc information so I could connect with my dad because we had a really tough relationship. We were so opposite. And when I learned how he understood life and how he came at life, I always thought that he hated me, but the reality was he just saw it from a different perspective. And so the way he spoke to me, how he interacted with me from when I was young to when I got older, always felt like correction. And as more of an I personality and a recognition personality, I wanted him to like me. So when he would give me correction, I would think, oh, he hates me. But the reality was he was just doing that through his natural style.
Yeah.
Well, that type of interaction, learning that information to get along with my dad, helped me then share it with tens and tens of thousands of people over the last 25 years. I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known what a great opportunity it was to learn something to help me. Then ultimately by learning that, I was able to help so many other people. But that's the best part. What you're talking about is when you learn a great tool, why wouldn't you share it? If someone learned how to use a saw or you see all these great inventions now, people using inventions of, have you ever seen this new one on TV where if you have to make a hard cut around an angle or something like that, or around a door or something, then they created this great tool where you stick it on there and it creates all the different dynamics of it so you can cut all the little different pieces out of it. Whoever figured that out, that's an incredible tool. But it's much more dynamic. They really thought about that one issue and created a tool to handle that one thing, which is how do I make a bunch of little minute cuts to go around molding around a door? I mean, who even considers that? Well, that guy did.
Because he encountered a problem and he needed to solve it. That's why he did it, to make his life easier.
Yep.
And like you said, once you have that information, now share it and help other people so their life is a little maybe easier and less stressful when they're dealing with those very precise cuts.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and that's the whole key, I think.
Yeah.
In anything we do.
So you said something that really sparked. You took the time to learn in looking at your dad and his behavior and the way he
Mhm.
approached things, so many people wouldn't take the time to be able to look at a different perspective. They would continuously stare down the path and think in a certain way instead of looking at a different person's perspective.
Mhm.
What do you suggest? Because that's a very common thing just in communication and
Sure.
dealing with every type of relationship, not just a parent child, but any relationship, work, coworker, friend, sibling, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you suggest for someone to take that moment and to be able to look at a different perspective and how that might enhance not only the relationship, but your own really emotional intelligence is what
Yeah.
it is. But
Boy, that's like a full day seminar, what you just asked.
yes.
But hold on really quick because I'm going to grab something. Just one second.
Okay.
It's right here because I don't have this too far because every time I go speak, I use this quote. I don't know if you can see it or not. It says, "People don't do things against you. They're normally doing things for themselves."
There you
So
go.
I use that quote a lot. It's a mainstay quote every time I teach about personalities, but it also allows you to have some empathy. So people aren't doing things against you. They're not doing things against you. They're normally doing things for themselves. Well, why are they normally doing things for themselves? Because they have a need that they're trying to get met.
Hmm.
Well, how are they getting that need met? According to their strongest tendency, preference, pattern, or comfort zone. So what's that look like? Well, in the personality world, it looks in all different forms. I used to tell a story about my students, and I used to just kind of share this idea that you never know what your kids are going to do. You never know what your students are going to do in your classroom. And so I was sitting there working. I was about to teach my class, and this is good. Y'all better buckle in because this is going to take a minute for this story. But when I went to college, I got a degree in education, and so we actually went through courses where we had to learn. You can see how long ago I started teaching, but so we had to use an overhead, right? And so we had to like manipulate the overhead. This is a whole course. You have to take a course to be able to be proficient as a teacher. So we take the overhead, put the transparency on, and put it up against the screen, and we learn how to pull down the screen, and we learn how to do a record, not a recorder like that, not kind of recorder, but the recorder where you literally can you push two buttons to press record or reset the back to zero, and this is a course you take as a teacher. And so I'm a professional. So I always say this because I think it's stupid, but I think it's funny. So I'm a professional educator, and I've learned to pull a screen down. I'm in my classroom, and I go to pull down my screen, and when I go to pull it down, I hear this weird kind of cricking, like, and I'm thinking, now when I taught, when I was taking this course, I don't remember hearing that weird, sound, but I don't care because I'm bold. I'll go for it. And I pulled it down, and it shot back up into the ceiling where it was, held. And of course, all my students in the front row, like the ceiling kind of, and stuff went everywhere. And they're like, "Oh God, no." And so anyway, they're all having a fit. And so I thought, okay, well, since I have taken a course on this, I know teacher tricks. So I went to go pull it down again. And when you pull it down the second time, I jerked it out because that's what you do for a screen. Pull it out and then make it catch. And then it shot back into the ceiling. Okay. Now we're really close to explaining what you just asked me.
I'm with you.
What is he talking about? I'm talking about this idea of multiple perspectives and how you understand people and empathy and all the good stuff that comes with it. Because if you don't, every student, in about 2 seconds as I explain the story, every student becomes a problem.
Yep.
Every human being around you becomes a problem if you don't understand perspective, if you don't understand someone else's, how they come about solving their problems and meeting their needs. And so people aren't doing things against you. They're normally doing things for themselves to meet a need according to the strongest tendency, preference, pattern, comfort zone. Okay, here we go. So I went to pull it down. There's only two things really funny to students. One is if you do something really stupid like that. Mm-hmm. Only funnier than that is if it would have fell and hit me in the head. That'd have finished him off because, oh my God, Mr. Hinojosa got hit by the overhead screen. It was incredible. He's laid out. I don't think he woke up for like 10 minutes. We got a lot of time for ourselves. Anyway, so that's two good things. So I can't get this screen to work. Now, ready? Here's the four perspectives. Immediately, one of the students in the back, we're going to call him a high D. He's dominant, determined, decisive. He's a doer. He gets up out of he wouldn't sit with anybody in my chairs, because I had tables up, not tables, but student desk up front and lab tables in the back, because I taught science. And so he got out of his lab table, came all the way to the front, walked past me, literally took over the class, and just started yanking on the screen. Now, I would call that the dominant or get it done personality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was he doing that against me? Was he on purpose trying to create chaos and unstructure? But I do think in his mind he was saying to himself, this guy's incompetent. He's not going to be able to do this. I'm going to need to give him some help. And so let me go ahead and get started on this and make sure that Mr. Hosa can do his job well. I don't care if he's got a degree. It obviously wasn't good enough. So anyway, he starts yanking on the screen. Right after that, there's a group of students in my classroom. We're going to call them the high I students. They're my ones get it done. The other ones have some fun. They're my fun kids. And they start a chant in the back. It's real low at first. It's like this: free day, free day, free day. And so they're creating all kinds of problems because they now see that the screen's not working. So there's no notes. There's no transparency. So they're creating a whole issue over here: free day. And it's real low, and then it builds up. At the same time that the free day people are doing that, the kids over there yanking on my screen, then I've got another student in my classroom. She and I'll tell you why I know this. She starts like literally, she doesn't say it out loud, but you can see her facial expression. I've seen kids like just literally just slide out of their chair. Like, this is too much chaos. It's unstructured. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. And her thought process is this: he just got out of his seat. He left his seat. He didn't even get permission. These people are screaming free day. Mr. Host has completely lost control. This is not good. I either need to go to the bathroom or the nurse. I don't know which. And so anyway, so we got that person. That's the nice. So I say done, fun, nice, and precise. And so she's the nice, supportive, steady personality. It can be a male or a female. It doesn't matter. But they're thinking right now, what happened to the predictability? What happened to the routine? And then the final one was, now this all happened in seconds, right? And the final one is the person in the seat, and it's my compliance, cautious, calculating, critical thinker, the high C personality. And so this young man raises his hand and goes like this. And they don't ever raise their hand high because it's always like right here. It's not like, this is a high I. That's fun. Woo! Okay, this is them. So they're just like, okay. So he raised his hand, and I said, yes. And he goes, I got a question for you here. This is third period, right? Yeah. Biology AP. Yeah. Did first and second period get the notes? And I'm like, yes, they got the notes. Yeah, I'm going to need the notes. Now, I'm glad you laughed, because some people don't think it's funny, but when you're a teacher, and so here's the problem. My personality, I'm kind of with the free day people. Like, that's my personality. Like, if I would have saw chaos like this, I'm kind of a free day person or a get it done person. But my thought wasn't, well, the teacher doesn't have their act together, then I'm going to need the notes. And so I actually laughed out loud when this young man said that to me. I was like, what? Are you serious? He goes, yeah, if they got the notes, I need the notes. I can't get behind. And he was dead serious. And 2 doors down from him, that's 2 desks over, another kid goes like this, also a C. Yes, Mr. Hosa, just a suggestion. Why don't you just write it on the board? And that's when all the free day people were like, no, oh God, we're so close to a free day.
Stuff that kid in a trash can now.
Yeah, and that's when the young lady that was going to throw up or had to go to the nurse or whatever, she thinks to herself, oh, that's a great idea. He can write it on the board. That way everything's taken care of. And now he's back in charge. I wish he would tell that young man to stop yanking on the screen. And that's when I turned around. Now, I don't know this because she's all thinking this in her head, but I turned around and I told, his name was Ben. I said, Ben, okay, that's good. And he looked at me and he goes like this, Mr. Hosa, that screen's broken. And I was like, yeah, you think so, Spartacus? Go sit down. And so anyway, he walks back to his chair, and I always think of the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High when he's like this. He was walking back, man, if I would have had the right set of tools, I could have fixed this thing. I know I could have fixed it. I just need a little more time. And so anyway, so those are the 4 perspectives of just what I'm talking about, is that none of those students were doing that against me. They didn't wake up early to make my life miserable. That young man, Ben, didn't walk up and take over and start yanking on the screen because he wanted to make me look stupid or incompetent. You're obviously not good enough. You're a terrible teacher. You can't pull down a screen. He wasn't thinking any of that. You know what he was thinking? I'm going to make the screen work.
I can do it. I can do it.
I'll do that. Get it done. So the D's want to get the job done. My free day people, they love adding energy into an otherwise dull world. And when in that moment, when that world got really out of control and it wasn't fun anymore, they thought, here's a great opportunity to get a little free day. Woo, free day, free day. And they just want to add energy into everything. That's why I say they want to have some fun. And the S, their whole job is to pull things back together, serve, support, create a steadiness, a predictability, a routine, harmony. And when harmony was disrupted, their whole job was try to figure out how to make it good again. And so that's why I always use the example. I could see her going, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yes.
This is chaos. And then finally, my C personalities, the precise ones, they think about things like, is this accurate? Is this right? Can I prove it? Is there a way to get this process done in another way to be more efficient? Well, when you know that about people, you don't hold it against them anymore. You look at those as their greatest strengths they bring to the table. If the D has the vision and the I's over there selling it and the S is over there serving it and the C's over there perfecting it, that's a great use of all their strengths. Don't hold it against people. Utilize that to your advantage. Utilize that to their advantage, because when people do what they love and they get to use their strengths, they're going to be much more engaged. All right, that was a long story to prove to hopefully illustrate that, yes, I love tools and I love the DISC tool, and it helps me understand how to connect with people and not hold it against them, but yet utilize those opportunities to understand them more effectively. And we would call that empathy. That's another way of saying empathy, seeing from another person's perspective, utilizing those strengths, strength finders, okay,
Yeah.
all the stuff that we do out there.
I bet you have a million stories to illustrate that. That's the beauty of being a teacher, is because you can see the wheels turning, and to be able to have this, forgive the comparison, but this science experiment, if you will, of personalities.
Love it.
But what I love about what you're saying, and again, so many people do, and you could answer this way better than I, but so many people approach things from this very rigid perspective of, if you're not just like me, and if you don't think like me, then you're against me and something's wrong. Yeah. So I must now convince you to think and act like me.
Wow, that's really, so just to play on that for a second. So I've been married 27 years now, go in September, and honey, for better or for worse, for sicker or poorer, richer, poorer, and all the other stuff that has to do with me saying I do. And they're like, you know what? I do too. And just want to let you know, after you say I do, it's time to fix you. And it's like, I don't like a thing about you. So then we go about spending the rest of our time with somebody trying to fix them to be just like us, when in reality, they're never going to be. Why in the world would you want someone just like you? Just be with you, But for other people in that moment, you have to think about, well, that they don't handle it the same way. They don't think the same way. They don't, hardly any of us, even if we had the exact, I heard, I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie 7 Days in Utopia. You ever heard this movie before?
I have not.
So Dr. David Cook, he's a applied sports psychologist, worked with the San Antonio Spurs. He's a consultant that interacts with our company, and absolutely brilliant guy. Wrote a great book called 7 Days in Utopia, and then ultimately that turned into a movie. And one of the things he talked about, and I love this thought, is that we all have gifts, we all have talents, we all have strengths. But the funny thing is, even if we had the same gift or talent, we all come about it a little different way. We all have we might even have a different personality or different experiences or different things that we learned over our lifetime in order to use that gift or talent. You can imagine I was talking about painting a second ago. Well, they can paint and you can paint, but the difference between what Bob Ross did with painting and maybe what a different person did with painting, Bob Ross made you feel as though you could paint. He had a gift to make you feel calm. If you ever want to go to sleep, just watch a Bob Ross for 30 minutes.
He's on the sleep app. He's on Calm.
Yeah, he's literally, but if I remember right, he was in the military and he'd experienced so much pain and so much things that he didn't like to see, that he loved to create things so that he could feel better in that moment. He could create his own happy cloud, happy tree, all of those things. And so many tens and tens of millions of people, lives were changed because of the way he taught painting. Now, are there other painters out there? Are there other teachers like me? Of course. But my gift or my blessing is not that I speak or present or love this material. It's the opportunity to get to share it. And then some people relate to it from my vantage point and some people relate to it from another person's vantage point. But that's the collective of our gifts, is that everybody gets to share the same thing a little different way. And when we share it that way, everybody gets better because of it. So anyway, so in other words, what you said was, honey, I love you so much, it's time to fix you. Well, we're not fixing anybody. She has a gift of the way she sees the world. I see the world differently. But to try to change that and beat that out of somebody, to try to use power and say, you can't think that way. I've been here for 20 years. This is just the way we do it. These are the tribal traditions of our company or whatever that might be. To do that to someone strips their ability in that moment to feel understood, to add value. Let me just say this last thing. When I see a young person be added to a team or to a new company or things like that, and we've been around for a long time, and so, well, I've been here forever. We've tried that. You've heard all these statements. We've tried that before. Or, no, I've been here for 15 years. Any of those statements like that immediately discount the fact that they were trying to see something from a fresh perspective. And when they see it from that fresh perspective, what would it be like to just understand it or value it? You might not change it. That's okay. You might have already tried all the different vantage points, but they're actually seeing something right now that is a problem. It's not working for them from their fresh perspective. We might not want to put the tools or resources into it. We might not want to put the time into it. We've created a process that's so far down the road that even thinking about changing it, we're not going to do it. But don't discount the fact that they're seeing it. They are seeing something, or they wouldn't be saying it out loud. And that ability to encourage someone to have that innovation, creativity, that's powerful in a new organization or even an old organization. They're seeing something that everybody's probably already admitted it to be true, but we're just not willing to change it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, just a thought.
No, I call that a combination of compassionate leadership to be able to develop psychological safety. If you don't develop a classroom is a great example. It's a place to learn and explore. And if you feel like you're going to be shamed for having an opinion, that stifles that ability to think. And, this continues in all key areas of their life. So I look at that as being able to have compassionate leadership. It doesn't mean you have to take on the ideas and change everything, but it's seeing the perspective.
Yeah. You ever heard of Marshall Goldsmith? What got you here won't get you there. An executive coach. He talks a lot about that as well. That idea that you might not even agree with it. You might not even use it, but you can always say, thank you. Thank you for that. You know what? Thank you for bringing that up again. Maybe there are some things that we can look at. You're not the first person. Now that should be a clue right there. You're not the first person that said that, but we're not changing it. But we're not changing it, and those type of moments we should reflect. And I think right now, more than ever, when you look at what we've experienced and this rapid change that we've had to experience, people having to regroup and revamp almost entire business philosophies, what might have been a 5-year plan, 5 years ago, and we're in year 2 of it. All that stopped right now. We're navigating wave to wave right now in business, trying to figure out, all right, what's the next wave going to bring? What's the next? Is it going to dent my boat? Is it going to break my boat? Is it going to create a hole? I mean, what's going on here? It's no longer really origin to destination.
Right.
It's wave by wave leadership right now. And so thinking about that thought, if there was something that you needed to retool, and you've heard it over and over and over again, we really should be working on that. Right now would be one of the times to do it, because to invest in those type of infrastructure, those type of thoughts, to make those changes, this is a good time. It sounds like, no, this is a worse time. No, this is actually one of the better times, because it's all those things that have probably been holding you back already. And now you have to admit it, that the infrastructure that I'd kept for all these years, utilizing it the way I had, doesn't fit in this changing environment. And those people have been saying it, but I wasn't willing to change. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what if I would have accepted that information 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even 1 year ago? I could have already been making these changes. So if you know that and you hear it over and over, this might be a good time to invest in that.
I agree with you. And I think right now is some of these things, and that, when you really start unwrapping a personality and leadership and ego and power and position, and you start unwrapping all of those things, there's a lot there. And I think now this environment has really forced the hand to look at the things that sometimes get looked at as soft skills that aren't needed or unnecessary to the bottom line. But back to your relationship analogy, I look at it as being able to create a choir. You've got this beautiful harmony among different personalities and different strengths and weaknesses. And it's about really being able to blend and have harmony and look beyond what the initial problem is. And sometimes I think that's when people get their blinders on, going back to the self. I keep circling back to this blinder mentality that people have. And I think now more than ever, people are really being forced to take a look outside of that in all the good, positive ways.
Yeah.
But it's hard. And I think that's really challenging a lot of leaders and people, teachers. Everyone's being challenged right now because unfortunately, these are skills we're not taught.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from your perspective, several things. I've got so many questions that came out of everything you just said, but several things. From the tool perspective, let's go back there for a second, because you talked about the different types of tools. Do you recommend someone first really going through certain things like the DISC personality, or the DISC profile rather?
Yeah.
Would you recommend somebody going through that for themselves first and really trying to get a handle on their own strengths and personality, and then bridging out to the people around them? What's kind of the order when people are trying to explore?
That's really good. So the nice thought is that thank goodness I've thought about some of these things in my life before you just asked me that question. When I teach the 3-day DISC certification, we break it up into 3 parts. And so I think I can answer your question this way. The first day we do understanding me. And so one of the most powerful things is to understand yourself. Self-awareness is really powerful. It's powerful for your EQ, your emotional intelligence. It's powerful to understand why you react to certain things instead of responding. In other words, why you let fear or anger get the best of you instead of seeing it as, wait a minute, I could be really angry that young man came to the front of the room, or I could see that he was literally trying to help me. I just wasn't doing it fast enough. Now I could be offended by that and say, okay, and then yell and scream at him, don't ever get up out of your chair. Or I could say, well, that kid's not doing that against me. I understand his style. So I think the first one, understanding me, is really crucial. So yeah, for me, understanding my personality, what strengths I have, if they get out of control, that's a whole nother thought process. Mm-hmm. And can a strength of mine of getting things done be so pushed out of control that then it turns into a struggle or a strain? Yeah, absolutely. That same young man came to my very first camp I ever did. And when he learned he was a high D, he said, all right, I'm a D, deal with it. And I thought, no, I think you missed the whole idea, because here's the second piece of the information. You can understand yourself and never effectively discover other people. So I know myself so well that if you do this to me, this is what I'm going to do to you. If you do this, this is how I handle it. But I never consider the second piece is, how do I discover how someone else does them? How do I understand how to truly discover the other person's strengths and how they see the world, their perspective? Because that's where empathy is. You can be completely understanding of yourself and have no empathy. I'm all focused on me. But I need to be able to have that next step, which is understanding me. Secondly, discover others. And then the third piece of that is, if I can understand myself and I can understand other people, discover other people and what they do, then third piece is I can work effectively together. So then we can do some really great things. But if I can't do those first two well, I'm not getting to working together very well, because I'm going to be like that guy telling that young person, no, I've been here for 20 years. You sit still as I instill. You just do what I tell you. That's why I hired you. And there is no working together in that. That's a one-way, what I would have two companies, Influencer Incorporated and then Controller Limited. That's, when I wrote my book, that was the idea. I'm running two companies all the time. Do I run a book called Influencer Incorporated that influences people positively, or do I run a company called Controller Limited? So am I either being referred to the BRB, the Better Relationship Bureau, or am I being reported to the BRB, the Better Relationship Bureau? I don't want to be reported. I want to be referred. So
Yeah,
that's what I think the three pieces are. You have to understand yourself, then you discover others, then you effectively can work, more on these projects, initiatives, all of those things on how you lead back and forth together.
that's perfect. Is this the book that you're referring to?
That is like I don't know where you got that, but here, I'll show you on mine. This is the newest edition on Amazon, but it looks like that.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's second edition. On Amazon, it's on the third edition. But what you have, believe it or not, is the very first edition that I did, where I tried to talk my publisher out of using that big ear. It's got an ear on there with a little guy speaking into his ear.
Yeah.
And I went round and round and round with my publisher of, please, can we not use an ear on the front of this cover? And I lost. I lost that battle.
Well, at that point in time, it's certainly catchy. And what's interesting, your signature's in this book too. I got this off of
eBay, maybe Amazon, something.
It was one of the used book. I like buying my books from some of the used book sites because I like them to be recycled. So yeah, I actually have a signed copy from you, and I
bet I wrote "The Influence Begins with You" on the inside. Read the front cover, and I bet I wrote at the very top, "The influence begins with you."
No.
Is it to a person then?
No, it's not. It just looks like a signed copy, and my background's not gonna.
Oh yeah, yeah. All it is just my signature.
That's okay. And in full disclosure, I just got this a few days ago, and I have not read it, but I have, obviously looked through it, and a lot of what you just talked about looks like you've got some of the similar thread in here. So I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, I hope so. It's that was a labor of love. When it happened, my students, and I talk about it in the book, but I wasn't planning on writing a book or creating a camp for kids or any of those type of things. What turned my life to doing what I'm doing today was, and you heard me speak about this a little bit, was my very first year of teaching. I was teaching physics and chemistry that year, and a young lady in my classroom told me that she wanted to commit suicide. And I'd only been teaching somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks. I'm 23 years old, right out of college. And, as a teacher, when you hear something like that, you, by law, you have to get them help. You just can't say that out loud and not try to help them. But I think that God had been preparing me my whole life to help people down that path. Did you struggle with your self-image? Did you struggle with moments like with your mom or your dad? And I'd really struggled with my dad. And now you'd have to hear my whole story, but my dad was my greatest hero and my greatest, mentor and everything else until I became, 16 or 17. And then we had to work together. And then those differences in personalities, as you're trying to be your own person, when it creates a lot of, tension and conflict, I never understood why my dad was constantly trying to correct me all the time when I was trying to do everything I could to make him proud of me. And so it created a real divide between us. And at 18, I just said, that's it. I'm not talking to my father anymore. And so 18, 19, 20, I went off to college, put myself through school at UT. And the whole time I was trying to, on purpose, just, destroy my life. Well, by the time I get back to teaching invigorated my self-image. I could see that I had the ability to make a difference in people's lives. And quite honestly, I'll say this again to anybody that's listening, but there is a moment where when you lose your way, go back to your foundation. My foundation was my faith, and you can lose that pretty quickly if you're not careful, because you'll start thinking only about yourself. And the reality is that in that moment, when I got back to teaching, I realized that serving other people teaching other people what I had learned allowed me to get some confidence again, allowed me to know that I had something I could offer this world. I'll say this to all the parents right now, because, and I have 4 children, just because you know all this stuff or even understand yourself and can discover others and you can work together and maybe you have done something, really beneficial, for other people. Don't forget your children are in this world right now. And my son, I was working with him a couple of days ago, and, he struggles with at 18, what am I supposed to do with my life? I don't have a purpose, I can't do anything. I'm not, there's all these people and they're going off to college and I'm going to go to junior college. And, what does that mean about me? And that is important, because that is a moment where you're starting to establish the fact of what you think is acceptable in this world. And so we had a long conversation. I'm so glad I was able to talk with him and remind him that when he learns whatever he learns, that's his gift back to this world. And that's what I want to encourage people. Whatever you love, whatever you've learned, and that's, by the way, the word leader, leader, pathfinder, whatever path you've been on, you have the ability to help someone down that path. And in that moment of serving another person, you won't believe how much meaning there is there, how much purpose there is. So whatever your company is, whatever product you have, I would say do your best. Zig Ziglar would say, help enough people get what they want, you'll always get what you want. Well, help enough people understand your product, what you do, who you are, and give it away enough. And guess what happens? You give away compassion, that's a good thing. Even if it isn't returned. Give away, when I taught science, I was giving away my science information, the way that I learned science. Well, that helped, thousands of students learn science. I just had a student write to me not too long ago. He's a medical doctor at Vanderbilt. He's a professor. And he's dealing with all the stuff that's going on right now as a professor and as a medical doctor. And he just wrote me on my Facebook and reminded me that all of those things that I was doing to encourage them, to help them have a positive attitude, set their goals, he still remembers it. Now that as a science teacher, you have no idea that you're going to be with that positive attitude, and what I was teaching in my classroom would ultimately remind someone on a daily basis to set goals or do something or help them. But that's what I'm trying to get to right now. Serve other people with your product, with your strengths, with your blessings, your gifts, and it will never return void. It will always be something that goes out into this world. Uh-oh.
Oh, there you are. You froze up for just a second.
Oh, was that me? Was that mine?
I'm not sure. It froze. We're good, I think.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Sorry
it froze.
about that.
I saw you completely freeze. I was like, whoa. I must have said something super impactful. She can't even move.
That's exactly what happened. I was so stunned. I had to freeze for a second.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Now, I love that though. And what I'm hearing you say, because it's a very important piece. So many people do really suffer with their self-image. Self-esteem means everything in terms of success and in relationships, and no matter what age. I mean, you have 90-year-old people that still struggle with their self-image. So what I'm really hearing you say though is try to tap in to one thing that you have a strength or gift in and give that to someone else.
Absolutely. You would be surprised, sir, because what my son was saying to himself was, well, I have no idea. All I'm doing is working on this, technology certification, all this programming, and he likes computers. And he said, but I have all these other kids in my class too, and I didn't do very good on my first quiz or whatever it was. And I said, oh, whoa, stop. That's too much. I don't care if you have 100 people in your class. There are always going to be people that are learning something. And that goes back to what I just said a second ago. We all have a different gift or strength. And on top of that, even if we had the same gift or strength, I learned technology or I learned how to program. That still doesn't mean everybody else is your competition. All that means is that whatever your group is, the ones that you get to influence, those are the ones you give your gift to. we got lots of teachers out there. So what's that mean? We shouldn't have lots of teachers anymore? No, that means every teacher has the opportunity to give their gift away. Every person that does technology has their opportunity to give their gift away. I don't understand programming. I don't understand how to create a back end of anything or data processing or any of that stuff. I need somebody's gift that's out there. And one day that will be my son. My son will be able to be that gift to somebody. You can't think of it the other way. Like, well, there's 100 people getting the same technology certification. No, and those 100 people will help different people. Give that away. But if we think of it like that, I'm in competition against all these people constantly, then we start to ask ourselves, am I any good? Am I worth anything? Well, I mean, I could say, I don't think this is the first time somebody's talked about, EQ or personalities or stuff like that. But hopefully my willingness to share it out loud and my passion for it will come through. And someone will go, wow, thank you. That really spoke to me today.
Yeah.
Yay. Great. That's exactly what we're looking to do.
Exactly. And every personality is attracted to different people. And going back to the learning styles, I could hear you talk today and a year from now get a different perspective just based upon what I need at that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because we are taught to protect our information, especially in the business world. You don't share, you don't, you hide your information for the potential threat of someone taking it from you and running with your idea. So what do you suggest in balancing that? Because there's a certain level of maybe self-preservation in there.
Yeah. I think that I'm probably going to answer this on a weird way, but it's not really information if you don't give it away. And then right after that, once you start giving it away, wouldn't it be nice? This is why it's going to be weird. Wouldn't it be nice that if you learned something or heard something, that you could have the forethought to give other people credit for what they did and then do it the right way? So why, if you've heard me already, I've said Marshall Goldsmith taught me that, or Stephen Covey said that, or Hiram Smith said that, or I don't have to be the only one that knows something. I have very unique things that I know that I've created in my science experiment in my classroom. That ability to see so many different perspectives and do that for 20 years in a classroom. I have a lot of information that other people might not have, a lot of data that people might not see. I created a fun way of remembering the four personalities quickly. So the D's want to get the job done, and I use like done, and the I's want to have some fun, fun, and the S's want you to be nice, and I go like this, please be nice, and the C's want you to be precise. And I do these little hand motions to remind them, and I always say it's going to take some time because they got to get it just right. And now the D's are mad, and the I's aren't having fun anymore, and the S's are like, it's okay. He's just proven a point. They like to be precise. Boom, done. Okay, so I've created all these fun illustrations and things like that. You know what someone could do to honor that? Just give me credit for it. Just give me credit for something that it took me years and years and years intellectually and through trial and error, through, how did I learn to do these hand signals and everything else? Because as a teacher, we also learned something called accelerated learning. And then I worked with gifted and talented. I have another certification in gifted and talented. There's ways that you use tactile, visual, and auditory as a teacher to get someone to remember something. So instead of just saying the D's are dominant, influencing, I's steadiness, S, C, compliance, and then everybody goes, okay, that's interesting. My ability to create an illustration done, fun, nice, and precise is intellectual property. Now, how could you honor that? Come to my DISC certification, learn the way I teach it, and then go share that with as many people as you want, but do it the right way. I don't think by holding this information back, I'm helping anybody. No company succeeds by not giving away intellectual property. They fail when they don't protect it or when other people abuse it. And so I would ask more on the other side. If you've learned something or done something or created something really powerful that's truly intellectual property for you, then protect it. Get a copyright, get a trademark around it. And then ask other people with your integrity, please don't abuse that. If you utilize something that has come from someone's creativity or imagination, then honor it. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I see a lot of it. We're so protective of our stuff that then at some point, well, then how do you give it away? You have to give it away. But at the same time, Zig Ziglar would do this. I don't know if you remember this on his tapes, but Zig Ziglar would say, at the end of his tapes, he would say, please don't duplicate these tapes. Your integrity and your respect for other people will help you make that decision. He would have this as part of his dialogue on a tape, and you would hear it. You just learned about your self-image, being the right kind of person, doing the right thing, and then you're like, you know what, the first thing I'm going to do is go take his information and steal it, and then at the very end, just to remind you not to do that, he would say it in real time, please don't do that. This took me a lifetime to create these illustrations, these stories. Just give me credit. Oh, you want to hear a good one?
Absolutely.
This is a funny one. So I got a call from Lori Majors, that's Zig Ziglar's assistant. And I was teaching at the time. And she said, you sent Zig Ziglar a story about what you were doing for kids. And would it be okay if Zig uses your story in a newsletter that he sends out all over the world? Well, I mean, you're like, Zig Ziglar, man, that's like your hero if you're a speaker. And I was like, absolutely, fantastic, that'd be incredible. Years later, I get a call back, like maybe 3 years later, I call same lady, Lori Majors, his assistant, and she says, Zig wants to write his new book, Better Than Good. Would it be okay if he uses your story in his new book? And you're like, of course. And I said, but the only thing is, if you don't mind, can I please get him to sign it personally? She said, do better than that. You live in Houston, drive up to Dallas, go to a Sunday school class, and then meet him personally and just bring your book and he'll sign it for you. So of course I did. I drove up to Dallas, went to a Sunday school class, sat in the front row. And then after I got done, I said, you don't know me, you've never met me personally, but this is me in your book, right? Right here. So would you
wrote about me.
Yeah. Would you sign it in your book, Better Than Good? And he did. And I, at that time I was actually just got out of seminary. And so I told him, I said, well, if you ever need a speaker for your Monday morning, meeting, you just let me know. I'd love to come and speak. Okay. I'm almost there. I'm so close. And so he actually has me come and speak to his company. Well, I go and speak to him, and I think that I start at 8:30. And so I show up at 8:15. I was supposed to start at 8.
Oh no.
I am late 15 minutes to speaking to Zig Ziglar and his company. And if you ever heard anything that he talks about, promptness, your integrity, your respect, I mean, I've listened to his tapes over and over and over again, and I'm like, I am devastated. And he's sitting in the front, like I'm 5 feet from him in this little room with his company, and he looks at me and he goes like this, not a good start, Pete. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And so I get done speaking, and I have to turn a 45-minute presentation into about a 20-minute presentation, and I get done, and he has got a kind of a funny growl. He goes, oh, Pete, you said some stuff Zig's never heard before. And then he goes like this. He goes, looks like Zig's got himself some new originals. Now, he was being funny. He goes, I'm just joking. He goes, I always give credit for 3 reasons. Number 1, it's the right thing to do. Number 2, shows old Zig's done his homework. And number 3, if you told me wrong, I know who to blame. And he laughed, and I laughed. And so back to your question, even Zig Ziglar gives credit, right? No matter what, if you ever go back and listen to his talks, one of the best things he ever did was if he saw something or heard something or he learned something from someone else, he always used that person's name in order to give them credit. By the way, for the high C personality, that's a really important thing to do. They want to validate what you say. They want to make sure that you're not just making stuff up. Now, I'm a high I, and so I like to just tell great stories, maybe without even a point. maybe I made them up, but not anymore, because Google has ruined my ability to just make up stories. Mm-hmm. They will hey, sir, that's incorrect. 32%. Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I said 30. I apologize. So anyway.
I appreciate you telling that story. I was going to ask you about Zig Ziglar, so I'm really glad you brought him up. I had the opportunity to meet him when I was 18, and it really changed a lot for me in my life at that time. So I didn't know all of that story that you just told, but I knew bits of that. So I love the perspective. And you're so right. Even someone such as Zig Ziglar, who is, I mean, Zig Ziglar's like he's the guy, right?
He, he was
He's
the
that
granddaddy
guy.
of motivational speakers.
Yes. So for him to have that integrity to be able to still give credit to other people, but it goes back, if we kind of take a giant circle here, it
Hmm.
goes back to the self and being able to connect with yourself first and understand.
Right.
And so really the thread I'm trying to pull through that is if you've got information and you're worried about it being stolen, yes, protect it. However, it's rather selfish. It's rather selfish if you have all this knowledge and you don't share it. I talk about that with marketing. If you're not marketing yourself and you're not sharing your story, you're really being selfish because the world needs to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think of the word gift. What does it typically mean? It's to be given away, right?
Yeah.
So if I help, like I have this gift for you, well, you're going to give it to me? No.
Yeah. Right.
Well, why did you tell me about it? Well, because I just wanted you to be excited for no reason. Maybe one day I'll give it to you. Just give it to me now. No, I don't think so. No, a gift is meant to be given away, and a blessing. I always think of leadership that way too. You don't rise in leadership and become more powerful. You rise in leadership and become you've been blessed so often that now you can be a blessing to others. If you think back to that, I think it was, golly, I'm going to mess up his name, but the book is called Aspire, and you have to look it up for me, and I'll try to think of what the gentleman's name. I thought his first name was Kevin, but in the book Aspire, he uses that word leader, and he breaks it apart, and the etymology of leadership, Leah Dur, and so Leah, path, Dur, finder. How do you become a great leader? You give away the paths that you've discovered so that other people don't stumble over the same pitfalls, roadblocks, fall off a cliff, whatever it is. A true Leader, pathfinder, has done the path before someone and now is giving that away.
Yeah.
You're giving that direction to someone else so they can get down that path more quickly, more effectively, more efficiently. It doesn't hurt me if someone takes my stuff and then they, tear it all apart, use it for themselves, create their own illustrations from it. Yeah, just give the person credit. But it's very hard to create something unique today. It's very hard with all this information for me to create done, fun, nice, and precise. That's not, you would think, well, that's just so simple. Well, it's not simple. They rhyme. They have hand signals that go with them. There's all these, it's intricate, but it comes off as very simple. So when you see something like that you go, God, why didn't I think of that? That's so simple. That takes effort. Give that person credit for something like that. So anyway.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things I definitely want to kind of go back to as well, you've mentioned several times illustrations and visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'm really big into is obviously being able to understand how our brain works and being able to increase our success and our happiness and fulfillment. But visualization and being able to have illustrations is a huge part of learning. How do you suggest for people to incorporate more visualization? Maybe not, it doesn't have to be in a big success perspective, but just in helping.
Yeah. Well, and that's a loaded question too. That's a whole seminar.
It is.
So one of the things I talk about a lot is the left brain, right brain. So left brain is all your logic side. It's the can'ts and the won'ts. It's the critical thinker. It's the process procedures. It's all the stuff that causes us to second guess. So I was about to do this, and then my left side kicks in and starts analyzing it and say, no, don't do that at all. You've never been good at that. It's also where your willpower is over on the left side. Trying to make something out of something that's not really you. But I'm sharing this for the right side. The right side is the self-image. But another way of saying that is it's your imagination. And I do want to say this for anybody that's listening, because sometimes you'll hear this word self-image or self-esteem, and you'll connect that to giving everybody a trophy and all that business. That's not what we're talking about here. When you talk about self-image, you're talking about the image in which you hold of yourself. Zig Ziglar would say that the most important image you'll ever hold is the image you hold of yourself. You cannot consistently perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. So this right side, the image, the imagination, is such a powerful tool, because that's where creativity is. That's where innovation is. That's where seeing something that might not be can come true. When I talk to salespeople all the time, that's where role playing comes from. So why do you role play? Are you really sitting in front of the business owner? No. Why do I practice a talk, or practice a skit, or practice the 4 different personalities a certain way, or my facial expressions, or whatever it is? Because I'm practicing in that moment in my head. Am I in front of a real audience? No. But I'm practicing to gain confidence. I'm practicing to gain progress at something. Practice makes progress. As my wife would tell my daughter all the time, because we're teachers, can't always be perfect, but you can make progress. But the reality is that every time we imagine something, we have the ability to see something that's possible. And if we see ourselves in the wrong way, we'll never see what's possible. What if I saw myself as, I can't ever do that, or it's not possible, or if it's the other, like my son, well, all these other people are going to be successful but me. Well, who told you that? I mean, do you even know that to be true? How have you shot your self-image that far down the line into the future? I can't even tell what's going to happen tomorrow. You've decided you can't be successful 5 years from now, much less the rest of your life. In other words, you created an image that's being beat up by your left side, saying that is accurate, that is true. If you don't make these grades, or if you don't do this, then you can't be successful. Well, we know that's not true. We know people that just finish high school and become executives and create their own businesses. We know people that go to college and do nothing. I mean, that's where the self-image and the imagination really, I think, come into play, is this idea that we have the ability to create whatever mental imagination we want. And then I'm not unrealistic. Then you got to go about doing something. Yeah. You can have the imagination. I think I shared the story with y'all when I first met you, that I wanted to do a camp for kids. So I wrote it all out on graph paper. Did I have a camp? No. Did I have $1 million to create a camp? No. But I said, you know what would it look like in my imagination to create a camp? What would the dirt roads look like? What would the cabins look like? What would the lodge look like? And I started imagining all of these things and putting them out there. And then I had to do the hard work, which was start calling people and say, would you be willing to invest in a camp for kids? That's the part that most people just kind of stop at. Like there's goal setting, there's goal getting, and then there's goal sweating. And the goal sweating is the part most people don't want to do. And you have to make calls, and you've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to take rejection. Now, there's a cool part. How do you see yourself when you take rejection? How do you see yourself as being determined or resilient or gritty? What are these words that pull up inside of you that are in your imagined self, your self-image, so that you handle those moments differently? Who gets to decide that? Not you don't, I don't. The person gets to decide that. So some teacher saying you'll never be good at art, or you'll never be successful. You're not good at math. You make too many careless mistakes. You can run that as a program. Others can stop you temporarily, but only you can stop you permanently when you decide that's who I am. And then you're done. So anyway, that was a lot, but those are the type of things that go through my mind when I'm trying to help someone understand. You get to decide the image in which you hold of yourself. And it is a massive calibrator. It is a governor. If you have a low self-image, you're not going above that. You'll go above it for a second or two with willpower, and you'll snap back, like the example that I use with a rubber band. You'll snap back to your original self, and whatever that is, wherever it snaps back, that's going to be pretty much how you perform throughout your life. But here's the good part: you don't have to hold it out and pull out a rubber band really big in order to have willpower and then snap it back to your original. You get to decide the rubber band. Get a bigger rubber band. And I always say, get a bungee cord, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. You can make the rubber band as big as you want. It is your self-image. You get to decide that. And I believe you were created to be priceless. You're unique. You're a one of a kind. So with that, do something great with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What you think really does matter.
Yeah. How you see yourself is hugely important.
Yeah.
I see myself as a quitter. Okay, well, get ready to quit.
Yeah.
I see myself as resilient. All right, get ready to hang in there.
Yeah.
This is how I handle adversity. We talked a little bit about, the book for a second, but in that chapter, I wrote an entire chapter on this is who I am. And so create your this is who I am list, and then go about living that on a daily basis. Ben Franklin sort of started that with his 13 virtues. He said, I didn't like the way I repelled human beings. I was walking down the road. I was walking down the path. Another person was walking toward me. And as he saw me, he walked across the street and to the other side. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's me. And he said, I need to work on some of these virtues. And so he created his 13 virtues, one for every quarter. So every 13 weeks, he would start over.
That's awesome.
52 weeks total.
I want to touch on something you had talked about, the camp, and in looking at trying to create something for kids. You also have an online course specifically for teachers to be able to help with those skills. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So one of the things in business right now is if you're a speaker and presenter, I highly recommend, or if you're in the world at all of training and development in your company, online is now where it's going to be. So you have to have a learning management system. You need to be looking at that and thinking about your infrastructure around that. What we're doing right now, these virtual trainings, these virtual webinars, podcasts, all those are hugely important. It allows people to hear information in a different way. And so one of the things that I did is I took a talk that I did from the University of Mississippi for K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. And I was working with a bunch of teachers, and I took my very best information that I had on how to connect with students and then be a teacher. And so I used the DISC information, my philosophy of influence versus control, on how to create understanding instead of misunderstanding. And then I created an online course from that presentation that teachers or parents, even a parent, if you're working with your kids right now and they're at home and you want to understand what teachers are dealing with or how to connect with your kids differently, the information works. If you have youth or kids, youth ministry, churches, any type of nonprofit that works with kids, and you want to gain something from that, this is my best information that I shared with teachers across the country on how to impact and create a culture of influence within a classroom. And I use all the DISC information in order to do it. And it comes with just tons and tons of extras on my teaching course. So you can go online to questld.com, QUESTLD.com, and just order the course and then go for it. It comes with, if you're a teacher, it comes with a tons of stuff. So 3 ebooks, communication cards, the MP3s, that's, all the actual course itself, quizzes, a final on it so that you can give it back to your principal and show you completed this online course. So a certificate of completion, all that stuff. So it comes with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, like $700 worth of retail giveaways. The standard version is $99. The upgraded version is $129. So not a huge investment, but hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of retail stuff in order to take with you.
It sounds invaluable, especially right now in the environment we're in. People are seeking and searching for just tools to be able to help. So it sounds like perfect timing. I look forward to getting it myself, and I'll certainly share it as well. We'll put it in the show notes too, but I definitely recommend that.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, it's always been my love. I'll say one thing for you. If you're a, principal or superintendent, you can buy them by the individual, but the reality is that if you're a big school or a big school and you'd like to recommend it for it, or if you're a company and you want to buy it for a school for their teachers, then just let me know. You're going to probably need to email me personally, and then we'll put together what's called a group rate, and I'll even discount the individual cost to where you can buy it, a whole bunch of individual registrations for a whole group. So we can do thousands, but the reality is that they're typically sold by one at a time. Mm-hmm. But if it's school district or something like that, or like I said, if you're a business and you want to buy that for a school and give it to or even give it to a nonprofit, you can buy it in one big bulk kit, and then we'll give you a discount off the per person price. That's
a great idea. I love it. What is a book that you recommend? If you could recommend one book.
Okay,
I know, that's a long list.
Here's the old statement, right? These are all the statements that I live by. And these are all like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley quotes and all this kind of stuff. Um, you are the exact same person you are today and 5 years from now, except for the books you read, the people you associate with, or all the other stuff you download, like podcasts, these courses, all that type of stuff. So I took that to heart when I first heard that in my early 20s. So who do I associate with? Who are the people that I want to learn from? Who do I find as mentors that have experience in all these different areas that I can learn from? What podcasts, what audio visual, what stuff that I download into my brain that had helped me, understand myself better, discover others, work together, perfect my craft. When I first started painting 5 years ago, I love it. I go with this. You go and find communities, people that know what you don't know, and then you learn from them. Man, it is so rich out there. I joined a community called Art Tutor, and it was all these like English and Welsh and Scottish and all these people over in Europe, and they had created this online portal where you could learn how to paint. And so I learned from all these people I've never met, and I learned from them. Bob Ross was another one I learned from. I just watched his whole series. But you can change that. So now back to the book. So I said all that to say this. People don't become really good at something by not reading or not investing their time or practicing. If you're going to be good at something, you're going to read, you're going to listen, you're going to grow, you're going to think about these things, you're going to put them into practice. I'll put it up, I'll show it to you. You can't get it, that's the only problem. You're going to have to find a used copy. But this was my go-to book. It's called Born to Win by Lewis Timberlake. Oh my goodness. That is my absolute love. He's a contemporary of Zig Ziglar. He was from Austin, Texas. He was one of my mentors. He made such a huge difference in my students' lives because I literally would read this book almost page by page over 187 days and talk to my students about the self-image. Lewis Timberlake would say it this way: you were born to win, but if you're not careful, this world will program you to lose. And it'll find a way to beat you up and tell you you're not worth something. But don't ever forget you were born to win. And I've spent my career taking one thing that he taught me before he passed away. It was really, man, you want to talk about fortuitous moments. 2009, I went on my own speaking full time. And I called him and I said, I have a speaking engagement, one of my first ones that I'm going to do as my own company. And I said, can I please meet you? And we met at a Starbucks. And I asked him, I said, what's the way to truly be an effective and have a long speaking career? And he said, the most important thing is that you have integrity, that whatever you speak about, you do. Don't mismatch that. Don't write about something and not do it, because people will figure you out. Don't go on the stage and speak about something, then turn around and not live it. He said that will cost you more. Even if no one ever figures it out, you know it. And I don't want you to ever live with that. So he said, be the person that you're speaking about. Speak about the things that you care about most so that you can be authentic. And he said, that's how you'll have a really long speaking career. And then the second thing he said was, and don't ever forget you were born to win. When you know that you're worth something, then you can give it away. And so I always say that, I said that to my students every year. When you know you have worth, you give it away. You treat something with worth differently. But when you don't think you have worth, you throw it away. Mm-hmm. Now, he didn't say that to me. That's just something that I've learned over time. But what he did say is that when you know you have good self-worth, then whatever you have inside of you, you can give away. So if you have love, then you can give that away. If you have compassion or patience or understanding or honesty or integrity, you give that away, and it makes the world better because of it. He said, that's what I want you to do. So whatever you have inside of you, don't ever forget. Tell every audience you ever speak to that the way they see themselves is the most important thing they can do, because how they see themselves is what they're about to give away. So if they're angry and upset and bitter, they're going to give that away. And I don't want you to ever teach that. Teach them to remind themselves that they're absolutely born to win. And so I have not stopped. I met him in 2009 for the first time, but I've been sharing his book since 1995, and we're on 1997. And so I have tried in every talk I've ever done to honor what he asked me to do, which is to remind people that you're all born to win.
I love it. I actually picked up 2 copies of that book. Again, I like to go through vintage bookstores and repurpose, I say. So I found 2 copies. So I'm on a quest. Every used bookstore I go through, I try to see if they have one. Yeah.
Yeah. Just before he passed away, I tried to convince him to reprint it, and then let me self-publish it with him, and we could make some updates to it, some of the things I'd learned about kids. And he got so excited about the idea, and then he passed away, and then it never happened. So it never went back to print. And the printer is Tyndale too. I mean, they're a huge publishing company.
Yeah.
I could sell a bunch of their books if they'd let me, because I believe in it.
Well,
believe in most.
You're still giving a great tribute to it, and in keeping the repurposing. All the used bookstores thank you for it as well.
Yeah, Amazon, eBay, whoever has books, they're all thanking me. So
that's right.
No problem.
Oh my gosh. Well, Pete, you are absolutely a wealth of knowledge, and I so very much appreciate you, appreciate your time, and just your gift to be able to share what you've learned with others. Is there any, I guess, final 60-second strategy that you would like to impart on whoever might be listening?
Well, I think it goes back to what we said. If I really want to do something great with my life, I need to have a why, a purpose, something that's meaningful. And I think sometimes people think that that's such a big thing. Like, oh, I've got to have this massive thing to happen in order to do that. And the reality is that you have a gift, you have strengths, you have blessings that you've been given. And the worst thing in the world that could happen is if you don't believe that to be true, and then you don't give it away. And that's probably one of the things that hurts me the most when I watch students do that. They think, well, in comparison to, when my mom would say, or, my teacher said this to me, they'll create a set of files that almost automatically starts limiting their ability to do something really great with their lives. And so I would say, go back to that. You were already created to be great. You already created honestly to win. Unfortunately, all the other programs out there, including every commercial that's ever been written, is going to remind you that you're not good enough. And if that becomes your starting point for success, that I have to look to something else, this environment, to tell me if I'm good enough or not, that's going to be a long road. That's going to be a really painful road. It'll be very difficult for you to create an imagination of resiliency and grit and determination and all these other things. So that's what I would say. Start with your foundational qualities that you know that you want to live by. Create your "this is who I am" list. I am responsible, dependable, I have character, I'm going to stand the test of time, I'm consistent. Any of the things that you want to be true about yourself, and then go about living those each day and putting them into practice. And by doing that, help enough people get what they want: more consistency, more loyalty, more adaptability, more responsibility, better ethics, courage, bravery, loyalty. Give the world more of that, and you'll always get what you want. So that's what I would say.
Perfect ending. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate you.
Oh, wow. What a pleasure. And thank you for letting me share. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everybody can follow you on your website, Quest LD. So go grab a copy of the Teaching Online course. So Quest LD, we'll make sure to put that in the notes.
Okay.
And until next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Go Reflect Yourself. Please rate and review this episode. And if something moved you, please feel free to share. For more inspired action or to stay in touch, head on over to goreflectyourself.com or heatherjcrider.com. You can also take the growth mindset quiz and learn where your current growth mindset lies. Stay in touch on all social media at Heather J. Crider. Until next time, this is your host, Heather Crider, and I am challenging you to go reflect yourself so you can discover and become who you are meant to be.